Sagittarius, do you feel it? That something is shifting, but you can't quite name it? This isn't a minor change. This is an entirely new chapter in your life, where justice is not only served, but where those who once underestimated you can't believe what's happening. And you know what? This chapter didn't come from effort. It came from divine protection. So if you're here now, it's not a coincidence. Stay until the end of this video, because the truth you're about to hear will help you understand why everything you've ever endured was not in vain. And now, as the door opens, as your intuitions are no longer coincidences, let us step deeper into the astrological map that is redrawing your destiny. Because a new chapter for a Sagittarius does not begin with a decision. It begins with a sign in the sky, where heaven speaks and you are chosen. Breathe slowly and listen carefully, because what's coming to you is not coming to anyone else. And if you've ever asked yourself, why am I always the one who doesn't quite fit in? Do you know why Sagittarius is the only zodiac that's half human, half beast? Because your soul carries a mission like no other, one that touches the earth and touches the heavens. While others are busy picking sides, you are the one standing in the middle, to connect, to reconcile, and ultimately, to illuminate. Jupiter, the planet ruling Sagittarius, is not just a symbol of luck, as many assume. It represents higher law, truths that transcend human courts. It is the voice of justice that rises from the soul, from the heart, from the tears that no one ever witnessed. You weren't born to argue. You were born to prove that light needs no justification. Because when a Sagittarius stands up for truth, they don't just speak it, they live it. And when a Sagittarius is treated unfairly, their first question is not, why would someone do this to me? It's this, what am I meant to learn from this pain? Maybe you once quietly walked away from a toxic relationship, with no accusations, with no acts of revenge, because the Sagittarius heart understands that those who hurt you are already living in their own private hell. And you don't need to go down there with them. That kind of nobility is not always seen, but heaven sees. There is a phase in every Sagittarius's life, usually when Jupiter goes retrograde or enters the 12th house, a time when your soul is placed in deeply testing situations. These are the moments when you are most misunderstood, falsely judged, isolated, and though your heart wanted to scream, I did nothing wrong, you still chose silence. Not because you were weak, but because you understood. True justice doesn't rush. It arrives exactly when it must. And that moment is coming. They didn't believe you were that strong. They didn't think you could keep going after all that pain. They didn't know that while they laughed, you were learning how to forgive. They didn't know that you forgave not because they deserved it, but because you deserved to keep living without carrying poison in your heart. If you've ever silently forgiven someone who never knew, forgiveness is like a quiet current cleaning the riverbed, unseen, yet constantly flowing. If you've ever swallowed tears and smiled just so others could feel at peace, then you are the embodiment of compassion in a world starving for kindness. Maybe you've never told anyone that story, but today you can share it. Not for praise, but to plant a seed of healing. Have you ever forgiven someone who never knew? Write that story in the comments below, because maybe someone reading it will feel saved. The world today is not lacking in intelligence, but it is lacking in truthfulness. In Sagittarius, you don't just carry intellect, you carry truth from the soul. You don't just speak what's right, you are what's right. And what is right does not need to win. It only needs to be seen at the right time. Your new chapter doesn't begin with proving anything. It begins the moment you no longer need to prove anything at all. They once called you a dreamer, said you were too trusting, believed you were weak for always seeing the good in others. But now they're surprised, because the only one who survived the storm is you. Not because of your weapons, not because of revenge, but because of one thing only. The fire inside you never went out. And now, as the winds shift direction, as the wheel of karma turns back toward those who once sowed pain, you don't need to rejoice. You don't need to gloat. You only need to keep walking, because a greater journey still awaits you. You are Sagittarius, You don't linger too long in the past. You are the soul of unfolding roads. You are the arrow launched not out of hatred, but out of purpose. And now that arrow is landing on a new destiny. So, where is this taking you next? Not to the old place, not to familiar loops, but to a higher frequency, a place where your light is recognized and your purpose honored. Stay with me, because what happens next won't just change you. It will also change those who once stood on the sidelines when you fell. Some judgments are not handed down by a voice echoing through a courtroom. They are delivered in the silence of the universe, in the very moment when the one who once hurt you can no longer run from themselves. That is justice, not as you imagined it, not as punishment, but as the painful awakening of the one who was wrong. When the Gemini-Sagittarius axis activates, it is not merely a dialogue between two signs. It is the clash between rumor and truth, between noise and belief, between the world's deception and the soul's integrity. Gemini, the symbol of fragmented information, where things get split, scattered, even distorted. Sagittarius, the flame of clarity, gathering all the fragments back into one sacred fire, the fire of divine justice. And now, the wheel has turned back to you. But not to feed your pride, only to help you stand tall, in the quiet strength of one who no longer needs to win. To be proven right. Do you remember? There was a time you wanted to scream into the night, "I didn't do anything wrong." But instead, you swallowed your tears and collapsed beside a dim candle flame. Not to give up, but to pray, not to be cleared, but to beg that your heart would not turn to stone, and heaven heard. When no one believed you, heaven did. When no one stood with you, heaven stood. When no one saw you kneel, heaven witnessed and recorded it. They can't believe it now. They can't believe the one cast out from the story is the only one who still remained true to themselves. They can't believe the one who stayed silent is the one who survived the storm of slander, of misunderstanding, of isolation. And you know what? Your silence back then is what created the echo of justice now. Justice is not a moment. It is the result of hundreds of right choices, made in the most painful times. It doesn't come from the outside. It rises from within. From the way you refuse to become like them. From the way you refuse to fight with mud, even while sinking in it. There was a moment when just one sentence from you could have been enough to retaliate, but you stayed silent. Not because you were weak, but because you knew. One unspoken word can protect a part of the soul that has not yet been tainted. If you ever chose to walk away quietly, even when you had every right to make noise, if you ever forgave someone and no one knew, then know this. You are not weak. You are carrying the strongest part of humanity. That is why, now when consequences find their way back to those who hurt you, your heart feels light. Not joyful, not vengeful, just light. As if your soul has just been unchained. Have you ever received something unexpected after letting go of revenge? Write it in the comments below. Not to boast, but to light another path for those still trapped in hatred, not knowing how to break free. Because sometimes, the only thing that keeps someone from healing is that they've never seen another who let go and still lived well. You could be that person. Your story might be the first light to touch a wound that never had the chance to heal. True justice isn't just for you. It is the ripple that moves a collective. When one person stands in truth, an entire generation is illuminated. You don't have to do something grand, you only need to live honestly. Because sometimes, the only truth the world needs is one soul, brave enough to live authentically. And you've done that. No one clapped. But heaven took note. Core. And now, as justice has arrived, in a way no one expected, not through a courtroom, not through a verdict, but through sleepless nights, through souls being forced to finally face themselves. You no longer need to look back. You only need to keep going. Because the next chapter is not about proving you were right. It's about living fully in the truth you never betrayed. And now, in this very moment, when light no longer needs to be protected, but allowed to live, to breathe, to shine, we are invited into the greatest question of all, when there's nothing left to prove. How will you live? You stood your ground. Not because you were strong, but because you didn't surrender to the flood of hatred. And now, as the flood recedes, as the earth begins to dry, you look around and you realize this new chapter is not a reward for being right. It is the space for a soul that has learned how to survive without losing itself. I want to say this to you, not as an astrologer, but as someone who once collapsed from being misunderstood, and one day had to stand back up, not to protest, but just to continue living true to a self that no one needed to understand. A new chapter doesn't begin with applause. It begins with a silence that no longer feels heavy. A place where you stop thinking about what's been lost and start listening to what still remains. You still have your heart, you still have your dreams, you still have hands that once trembled, but never stopped reaching for the world. And that is enough to begin again. I believe this deeply. For a Sagittarius, no pain is ever meaningless. You weren't born to collect victories. You were born to gather truth. And when you carry truth, you are not afraid to start over. This new chapter is not about showing them you're okay. It's to remind you that you've always been okay. They just never looked at you with eyes gentle enough to see it. And if you are here now, it's because the universe has seen that you are ready. Have you ever realized that when you no longer need to be understood, you begin to understand yourself more? When you stop chasing agreement, you begin to walk straight toward where you were always meant to be. That is the gift of this new chapter. Freedom from approval, freedom from explanation. And in that stillness, your soul begins to resurrect. If there's one thing I've learned from all the losses in my life, it's this: you cannot lose what is sacred to your soul's mission. Whoever walked away was never meant to walk with you to higher ground. Whoever betrayed you could not withstand the light you carry. Whoever turned their back was only meant to accompany you on a lower energetic path. Don't call it a loss. Call it purification. Call it making space for what is meant to come. You've been living in survival mode for too long, haven't you? Always rehearsing explanations, always wondering where you went wrong, always walking into rooms with a layer of guardedness. But you know what? This new chapter doesn't ask you to protect yourself anymore. This new chapter only asks, will you dare to live fully without asking for permission? If you're ready, write this under the video. I choose to live without asking anymore. This is not just a comment. It is a vibrational command, a message to the universe. I am ready to receive the life that is already mine. We often think life's turning points must be grand. A fated meeting, an unexpected apology, a door of opportunity swinging open. But sometimes, the turning point is simply, one morning you wake up and you no longer feel the need to prove anything. You just live. Peacefully, honestly, bravely. And if someone asks you, what are you doing with your life these days? You can smile and say, I'm living the life I should have lived long ago. Take a look at your life right now. You are standing in the middle of a chapter that no one wrote for you. No one mapped it out. No one is cheering from the sidelines, but no one can stop you anymore either. Because the fire within you is the fire that made it through the dark night of the soul. And it doesn't need permission to shine. If this made your heart slow down for even one beat, share this video with someone you love. No need to explain, just send it. Because sometimes all someone needs is one sentence to change their life. And you could be the bridge that delivers it. And after everything, you will understand. This life was never here to test you. It came to affirm you. But be careful, because when you step into your new chapter, not everyone will celebrate. You will soon see clearly who truly loves you and who only loved the softer, more broken version of you. There is a kind of person who belongs nowhere, yet connects with everything. They don't stand with the dark, but they don't reject it either. They don't fully belong to the light, but they know how to keep a spark alive within, even when the world turns cold. That person is Sagittarius, a soul not born to choose sides, but to hold the flame between two worlds. The symbol of Sagittarius is a creature half human, half beast, half instinct, half divine. A living legend where two opposing forces reside within one body, but do not destroy each other. Instead, they learn to balance, to coexist, to create something great. You, Sagittarius, are the bridge between heaven and earth. You understand the language of instinct, but you also hear the voice of the soul. You walk the earth, but the arrow you draw always points to the sky. And because of that, your life was never meant to be simple. You've always lived between two extremes. Between freedom and responsibility, between forgiveness and boundaries, between your own sacred space and the calling of your community. But now, after everything you've been through, you're no longer torn. You have become a new version of yourself. A being of integration. No longer trying to please both worlds, but strong enough to hold them both without losing yourself. Maybe you never thought of yourself as a guide. You were simply living true, living clean, living clearly with your faith. But because of that, you became a torch for those still stumbling through the dark. You didn't need to speak. You didn't need to declare anything. You just kept walking, even when you had fallen. You kept believing, even after betrayal. You kept being kind, even when they called you foolish. And in doing so, you became living proof that kindness is never a mistake. And now, as you enter this new chapter, no longer driven by the need to prove your worth, you begin to notice strange things. People seek you for advice. They confide in you the things they can't tell anyone else. They ask you questions they're too afraid to ask themselves. Why? Because they feel something in you. Not perfection, but truth. Not power, but depth. Not your voice, but your frequency. And it is you, in your silence, who is healing the world in a way no one ever taught you. If you've ever been a safe place for someone to simply rest, just by your peaceful presence, write this under the video. I am the light, even when no one sees it. That phrase isn't for recognition. It's for you, to remember yourself, your role, and the sacred responsibility your soul chose when it came to this world. You are no longer the one searching for the path. You are becoming the path for others. You no longer need to ask anyone what to do, because the answer is already within your heart. A heart no longer filled with bitterness, only the deep knowing that living true to yourself is already a contribution to this world. And if you still doubt that, let me say this, from the experience of a lifetime. One Sagittarius soul living in truth can shift an entire city. One person vibrating at a higher frequency can calm storms without lifting a hand. You don't need a title to be called an inspiration, because you, through every small act, every quiet choice to be kind, have already been planting light in silence. Have you ever noticed that the things you thought were the smallest are the very things others remember the most? Share a moment when you did the right thing, even when no one saw it, because that moment might become the spark for someone who's losing faith in humanity. And now, as you step into a new dimension of life, get ready. Because when your light becomes clear, everything that doesn't belong to the light will begin to fall away. Next, you will witness something no one could have warned you about. When you become bright enough, not everyone will be happy. And when you no longer need to be understood, some relationships will fracture so that truth can take their place. When a lunar cycle ends with a full moon in Sagittarius, it's not just a conclusion. It is the peak of illumination, where past lessons are no longer burdens, but become the guiding light. The full moon in Sagittarius is the moment when truth comes to the surface, not to hurt, but to free. And if you feel something within you urging you to change, to shed, to step out, then trust that. It is not random. It is a calling. You are no longer at the beginning. You're not stuck in the middle either. You are standing at the threshold of a higher life, a place where you can't go back, but you can't quite see what's ahead either. And in that exact moment, you must choose to keep pretending everything is okay, or to live truthfully, even without knowing what's coming next, because now change is no longer an option. It is the only way out of the loop that has been draining you for far too long. And you're not only changing for yourself, because when a Sagittarius steps into a new chapter, they trigger a ripple effect. The people around you will feel your shift in energy. They will start asking themselves questions. They will begin to reflect on their own lives, simply because they saw you daring to live your truth. You heal yourself, and in doing so, you clear a path for others. This world doesn't need you to be like anyone else. This world needs you, exactly as you are. You weren't born to fit into the world. You were born to bring the world closer to the light you once clutched in silence, and now can release in freedom. If you feel like your name is being called, share this video with someone you care about. Not because you're certain, but because you've started to hear the calling. You are the bridge that brings the light to them. And finally, when you've gone far enough, when your heart has endured enough pain and still chooses love, you'll understand why this chapter isn't just the next part. It's the part you've waited your whole life to live. And if you're still here, it means your soul has heard what it needed to hear. Not from me, but from the light within you, the part of you that always knew you were meant for more. You didn't watch this video by accident. You didn't come here for temporary comfort. You came here to be seen, to remember. You are not alone on this awakening path. Maybe you stayed silent for too long. Maybe you hid your light because you were afraid of being judged. Maybe you once wondered if you were just too vague or too different. But today, you are here. And I believe heaven is smiling. If what I've shared touched something in you, thank you for staying with me until the very end. Thank you for believing, even when the world tried to make you doubt yourself. Thank you for living, for choosing light in a world where darkness is always the easier choice. May you be protected by all that is pure. May you be guided by your intuition. And may you always remember, every honest step, no matter how small, is unlocking a miraculous gate you never imagined could open. If this brought a stillness to your heart, please leave a comment as a gentle vow to your next chapter. Write, "I keep walking, no longer hiding my light." And share this video with someone you know is standing at the same threshold you once stood at. Because light, when given away, will always find its way back to the one who dared to spread it. I'll see you again on a higher level of life where no one needs to prove anything anymore, only to be present with a heart that no longer fears. Because this is not the end. It is only the beginning, like the light after a storm, no signal needed, but you know it's here.